people have children? Raise your hand if you have a child. You understand this next story? Something I don't know. There was a little boy, and he had to go to bed, but he wanted a glass of water. And so he yells to his dad, "Papa, will you please bring me a glass of water?" And his dad said, "No, time for bed, just go to sleep." And so a couple minutes later, "Papa, please bring me a glass of water. I'm so thirsty." And his papa said, "No, I told you to go to sleep." A few minutes later, "Papa, I'm really thirsty. I can't sleep until you bring me some water." And the father said, "No, don't ask me again. If you ask me again, I'm going to come up there and give you a palo. Right? I'm going to give you a spanking. If you ask again, I'm going to give you a spanking." A few minutes later, the little boy says, "Papa, when you come upstairs and give me a spanking, can you bring some water?" That's how children are, right? Yeah. That was not me and my daughter. That was somebody else. But for the next month, Brother Jonathan and I, we do want to talk about our families. And that's really where we need the most help, isn't it? That's where we find our Christianity tested, is at home. Where we need the most wisdom, right? We talked about wisdom in Sunday school. Please come to Sunday school. We've got some great topics for the next few weeks. But this morning, this afternoon, we were talking about wisdom. And I need wisdom in my family. What to do, what to say, what not to do, what not to say. How can my family move forward? How can I raise my children appropriately? Well, today, we want to talk about this topic of children. And really, I could think of no better title than the importance of children. The importance of children. You see, because Jesus, and then we're going to look at a few different points, and you have an outline there in your bulletin. But the first point has to be this, is that Jesus considers children a priority, not a nuisance. And I think we need to get that point across. Jesus considers children a priority, not a nuisance, right? Let's look at what happened in Mark chapter 10. And I'm going to look at Mark chapter 10 just for a few moments. And then we're going to turn to Matthew 18. And Matthew 18 is where I really want you to look in a few moments. But I needed to point this out. You want to make Jesus angry? If you want to make Jesus angry, then just mistreat the children. Here's what it says, Mark chapter 10, verse 13. People were bringing little children to Jesus to have him touch them, but the disciples rebuked him. And when Jesus saw this, he was indignant. What does indignant mean? Does it mean Jesus is happy? No. Does it mean Jesus is pleased? No. No. It means he is very displeased. He is not at all happy with the actions of his disciples. Here are some people with their children, and they want to bring their children to have Jesus touch them. And the disciples, the people following Jesus, the people who should know better, they're, no, I'm sorry. Jesus is too busy. He doesn't have time for your children. Jesus has better things to do. Jesus is very busy. I'm sorry, you're just going to have to leave. Don't bother Jesus with the children. And Jesus sees that. He sees that attitude, and he is indignant. He is displeased with his disciples. How is it that the people closest to Jesus miss this. The people who should have been so close to Jesus, they are keeping the children away. Look what Jesus says next. This is a passage we're familiar with in the church. He said to them, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them. For the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. I tell you the truth, anyone who will not receive the kingdom like a little child will never enter it." And he took the children in his arms, he put his hands on them, and he blessed them. You see, Jesus had time for the children. He wasn't too busy reading a newspaper and saying, "Get away, kid, you bother me." He takes the time and invests it in the children. That's how much of a priority Jesus gives to the little children. And can we in the church do anything less? Children are not to be an afterthought. Children are not just supposed to come to church and run around wherever they want to go. They're not just supposed to be entertained. They're supposed to be a priority. They're supposed to be brought to Jesus and not hindered. Jesus took the time to put his hands on the children and bless them. But you know what? In America right now, I'm so busy. I'm really too busy to deal with the kids. I get home and I'm tired. I just don't have time for the kids. Let them sit in front of the TV for a while. Let them watch a movie for a while. I got to sit down and rest. And Jesus was busy. Jesus had events to go to. He had things to do, but he took time to bless the children. I wonder how you and I can take time to bless the children. Maybe it's your grandchildren. And you have to babysit. I have to babysit again today. I have to babysit again next. No, it's a priority. It's a joy. We get to see the kids and we get to invest in them and we want to be a blessing to them. And when you come home from work and it's like, you know what, I just want to turn on the TV and I don't want the kids to bother me. Look, children are not to be a nuisance. Okay, yes, children are going to take time and energy and you're going to be exhausted, but it's worth it to invest in blessing the children. In fact, now this is where I want you to turn. I want you to turn to Matthew 18. Because in Matthew 18, Jesus is not done talking about children. In fact, when you get to Matthew chapter 18, Jesus uses a child as an example. Okay, I don't have this scripture up there yet. But when you turn to Matthew 18, the disciples are having an argument, who's the greatest? Right? Who's the greatest? I want to be great. We want to be great. Who does Jesus say is the greatest? He brings one of the little children. He says, this little child, that's the greatest. And the disciples are like, huh? Really? In those days, even for the Jewish culture, children were supposed to be seen and not heard. Not until they got a little older could they really participate and be really fully involved. As children, they did not receive the priority, but Jesus says, they're the greatest. This is the greatest. And then he goes on to say this, and this is the scripture I want to bring, to show hospitality to the children. He says, whoever welcomes a child, verse 5, whoever welcomes a little child like this in my name welcomes me. But if anyone causes one of these little ones to believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have a large millstone hung around his neck and drown in the depths of the sea. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. We're to show hospitality. Whoever welcomes, right, a little child in my name welcomes me. To welcome a child is to welcome Jesus. However, if we don't do that, what does it say? If you cause one of these little ones to sin, it would be better for you to have a millstone. You know what the millstones were? Millstones were at least this big. And there would be a donkey, some kind of an animal, that would pull the millstone in a circle, and it would grind the grain. And it was super heavy. And Jesus says, if you are going to cause little children to sin, it would be better for you to have one of those huge stones put on your neck and tossed into the sea. Jesus does not want that for little children. So what does that mean? There's a quotation I saw from someone, the fellow in charge of MTV. MTV, on the television, all these music video stations, where the owner of that says, "We own your children." That's his comment. We own your children. We are going to teach the next generation. That's what, do you want that? I have no idea what they're teaching. I don't think I want to know. But woe to them, Jesus says, you're going to cause little children to sin? That's bad news for you. In fact, that's the next point I want to bring up. It is bad news for you if you're going to cause little children to sin. You better be careful of your example. You better be careful what you show on TV. And this goes for parents, and it goes for everybody. If you're home at home and the children are watching the TV with you, and you're watching some R-rated movie, or you're watching something else on TV, and it's okay for the children to just sit there and watch that? I don't think so. I don't think so. And you're going to let them look at the computer and not intervene in what they're looking at on the computer? You're not going to have a filter to block out some of the garbage. You're just going to allow that? You're going to allow the children to sin and to stumble? Is that what we want? Woe to him. Look at this. Verse 7. Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to sin. Such things must come, but woe to the man through whom they come. If your hand and your foot cause you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life maimed or crippled than to have 2 hands or 2 feet to be thrown into eternal fire. Does Jesus want you and I to mutilate our bodies? Does he want me to cut off my hands and cut off my feet and cut out my eyes? Is that what he wants? No. Because if I cut off my hands, I cut off my feet, and I cut off my eyes, I can still sin. Sin is from the heart. Sin happens in the brain. I can be blind and still sin. What Jesus is saying is, he says, take action. Take action so that you do not sin. If a computer causes you to sin, unplug it. Take it away. It's better for you to have no computer in your house than to have a computer that causes you to sin. Better for you to get rid of it than it cause your children to sin. The context is still talking about children. We want to do whatever it takes to keep them from sinning. And you know what? It means older brothers and sisters. It means you setting a good example too. How many younger children are led into some bad behaviors because of an older sibling? And the older sibling says, oh, you know what? Look, you should do this or you should say this. And you get the younger child in trouble. Woe to you if you cause these little children to sin. And that goes for us as well. What about the adult who doesn't bring their kids to church? It says, well, it's okay, just you can go to the baseball tournament, go to the soccer tournament, and you don't have to come to church or youth group. Are we causing children to sin? Jesus says it's really bad. He's serious about this. Right? He's serious about training the children in the right direction. He's serious about not causing them to stumble and to sin. So, you know what that means? That means you and me got to watch our behavior. And that really leads me to my next point. Caring for children requires radical changes in our lives. To care for children, it requires you change your life. You change your priorities. You change how you use your time. You change how you use your money. You change what you watch on TV. You make changes. Why? To be a good example for the children. So you turn your TV off all week and you say, no TV for the children all week. Or you say, when we're watching TV and we're going to turn it off, the commercial, we're going to change it so they don't see, we don't want them to be exposed to all the garbage that the world has. It means I'm going to change what I watch on TV. It means some nights I just don't watch anything and we just play a board game with my daughter because there's nothing good for her to watch. I don't want her to see this. When children are little, they are wet cement. Right? Wet cement. You can still write in the wet cement, right? You can write your name. You can draw a picture in the wet cement. Right? And you, oh good, I get to write, Mike was here. Right? You draw a big heart. Mike plus name. Right? You put you draw in the wet cement and you put the date. Children are like that. You can still write on their hearts. Their hearts are wet cement. Their minds are wet cement. They remember these things. And I bet you as an adult, you can remember somebody who was older who led you into sin. You can remember a movie you saw. You can remember a TV show that you saw. And it taught you to say something that was bad. It taught you some bad behavior. I bet you as an adult can remember that. Jesus says, well, it's bad news. And it takes radical change for us as an adult. Look at this. It says, remember, if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. He wants you to change. It's better for you to end your life with one eye than to have two eyes and be thrown into the fire of hell. I know of a man who had a 5-year-old daughter. And he's sitting down on the couch. And his daughter crawls up and sits right on his chest. And she said, Daddy, will you please quit smoking? Please. I don't want you to die. What are you going to say? That man was a heavy smoker. This girl learned at school that smoking is bad for your health. And she came and she told Dad, will you please stop? Do you know he stopped? Why did he stop? He made a radical change. There was only one reason, for his daughter. He made a change for the child. That child led him in the right direction. He needed her to help him make a radical change. And I think God brings children into our lives so that you and I will make changes. So we don't watch some of that garbage. So we don't get involved. So we watch our language, right? Caring for children requires that kind of a change in your lifestyle so that we can lead them in the right direction. One last point, and it's right here from Matthew 18. God does not want any child to be lost. Look what he says when he gets to the end of Matthew 18, verse 10. He says, see that you do not look down on one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. It sounds like they have guardian angels, right? It's true what verse 10 says, their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father. So these little children have some guardian angels. And if that child's in trouble, that angel is going to tell the Father. And when children are in trouble, that gets God's attention. I told this story to our church in Aurora. When I was a little boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, my parents bought me a cap gun. A cap gun. And I was playing with my gun in my bedroom. And these old caps would make a loud noise, but they would also sometimes have a spark. Okay? Some of you know what I'm talking about. So I was playing in my room and I shot the cap, but the spark caught my bed on fire. So I got out of my bed and I went to the living room where my dad was. And if you know me, I'm not very excitable. And I just went into my dad and I said, "Dad, my bed's on fire." Just like that. "Dad, my bed's on fire." And my dad was sitting down, and you never saw him move so fast. You never saw. He jumped up, he grabbed the fire extinguisher, he ran into my room, and he put that bed, he put the fire out. You never saw my dad move so fast. Why? Because his son was in trouble. That's how the Father is. The angels report back. One of your children's in trouble. God is going to act. What else does he say in verse 12? Jesus says, "What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99? Remember, we're still talking about children. We're still talking about children here. If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 and go into the hills and go look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, I tell you the truth, he is happier about the one sheep that he lost, that one sheep, than about the 99 that did not wander off." One last verse, look at the very end. "In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones be lost." He's still talking about children. He's not willing that any child should be lost. God doesn't want any child to get lost. He doesn't want the child in your house. He doesn't want the child that's in the Philippines. He doesn't want the child who's in a gang. He doesn't want any child to be lost. He wants them all to be found. That's our job. And on Sunday mornings, we reach out to the children. We make the children a priority. Church is not just about us. We want to reach the children. Because it's no fun to be lost. Were you ever lost when you were a kid? Were you ever lost as a child? Maybe mom and dad is shopping and you get separated from them and they, "Oh no, where are mom and dad? Where are they?" And the child panics, right, a little bit. You know, and you go to the store manager and you call your mom and dad and say, "Okay, I have a child here, Michael Reagan. If he's your child, please come to the front desk and claim your child. He's lost." And the parents are, "Oh, where's my kid? Where's my child?" Jesus says that's the way that the Father does not want any children to be lost. He wants us all to be one back. In fact, you could say that he wants us to have a household of faith. I think that's where I want to close here this morning. But let's make it a priority to reach the children, that not a single one would be lost, but that we can all have this household